In the place where the Buddha lived and taught, there were a lot of people who had leprosy. One of the things about leprosy is that you get really painful sores, and then the sores are also quite itchy. And the Buddha observed that sometimes the itchiness would become so overwhelming for people that they would gather around the fire and burn the sore in the fire because it was just so unbearably itchy. And the burning would cause temporary relief. But of course, afterwards, the burning was painful. And even worse, once they started to heal, the sores would itch even more than they had before the burning. The Buddha used this as a metaphor for lust and sexual misconduct. He said people are pulled by desire. They get relief in ways that are harmful, but the desire remains and maybe is more unbearable than before. So, happy Valentine's Day. I promise we did not mean for this topic to fall on this day. It just happened. So we're talking about the Noble Eightfold Path. And part of right action is trying to avoid sexual misconduct, and also taking the training to avoid sexual misconduct is also one of the precepts, one of the practices that we undertake as part of the morality of Buddhism. If you grew up in Christianity, when you hear about a spiritual practice of avoiding sexual misconduct, you might have some preconceived notions of what that means. When it was time for me to get sex ed, I lived in an abstinence-only state, and we couldn't even talk about the things we couldn't do. It was just sort of like a don't, and we were like, don't what? And they were like, just don't. So there's a general interpretation of this precept, avoiding sexual misconduct. One is, not surprisingly, avoiding acts that lead to harm or suffering. Right? This is just in line with non-harming, which is the first of the precepts. We avoid acts that lead to harm or suffering. We avoid acts that harm relationships, and avoid acts that dehumanize or objectify people. So I think I just need to say clearly that in Buddhism, sex between two consensual partners is considered potentially onward leading. Right? There's no prohibition about that. The precept also has no problem with non-reproductive sex or queer sex or kinky sex or sex with multiple partners, as long as it doesn't cause harm to anyone involved, including people who are in relationship with the participants. And here we are again with these precepts. No rules, but a guideline that you have to work through and discern for yourself. Is what I'm doing leading to suffering, or is it leading to freedom? It's so much harder than the abstinence-only track. It forces us to be present with certain kinds of desire that, at least I think, are really difficult to be with steadily. There are types of desire that are so consuming and so full of urgency. They don't want to be sat with. They want to be obeyed. And so what we're being asked here as we practice this precept is, when we feel lust, when we feel desire, we do the same thing that we're doing in our sit. We see how it feels to be with it. What is this like? What is this lust like? What is this desire like? To really get to know it, before it's acted on? What is it like to have it? And then we're asked to look at the karma. Okay, when I engage in this act, what is it like when it's happening, and what is it like afterwards? Does it lead to harm? Does it lead to freedom? How does it feel when I'm sexual in this way or with this person? How does it feel afterwards? So the very first interpreters of this precept, the early Buddhists, strongly discouraged sex with animals and sex with people who are still under the care of parents or guardians. And the idea here is that these are beings who cannot consent. And so in general, it is harmful. I would say more than in general. It is harmful to have sex with beings that can't consent, right? It's a pretty clear guideline. And sex education has improved dramatically since I was getting abstinence-only education, right? We have a lot of conversation in our world and in our culture about consent. It's come a long way. And we've been gifted by all of these people who think about consent with some ways of thinking about it, including the idea of an enthusiastic yes. And the thing about an enthusiastic yes is that keeps you from taking what is not being freely given. And we know that taking what's not freely given leads to harm. We don't want to have sex with someone who's having sex begrudgingly. Right? We want that enthusiastic yes. Early Buddhist communities also discouraged sex that would lead to broken homes or partnerships. So basically, affairs that are not condoned or known by other partners. And for the same reason, they discouraged sex with monks or nuns, which would harm their spiritual journey and break their vow. I think it's really interesting that the precept is designed to guide the person making the decision to have sex, right? This is your karma. It's not about what the other person is doing to their relationship. It's about what you are doing to their relationship. And the observation is that if you engage in sexual relations that lead to breaking up another partnership or family, that will lead to suffering for you. Later Buddhist scholars have also examined this precept in terms of how we use pornography. And we're asking the same questions here. Are we harming or not harming? Was this pornography made in a way that led to harm for anybody who was involved in making it? Could the subject of this consent? Is my use of this pornography onward leading for me? Is it leading to harm for me or freedom? And we also ask, does the way I engage in sex or use pornography lead me to think of people as objects? Either the people in the pornography I'm using, or if I look at enough people in this kind of pornography, am I going to find myself starting to think of people as objects? Does it lead me to objectify, which is not onward leading? Or does it foster qualities of love and joy and play, which are more like freedom for me? So the exercise of this principle doesn't mean that all sex has to be spiritual and tantric, right? It doesn't have to be that way. There is play where objectification or pain is fun for both or all of the people who are participating in it. And that can lead to connection and fullness. Again, it's a discernment issue. There are cases where that kind of sex might lead you to find yourself having thoughts or views of people that is actually dehumanizing, and then you need to step back and look at what's happening. The precept is asking us, look at what you do and discern. So there's a tendency that people have on various spiritual paths, which is to just say, this discerning is too hard. I'm going to avoid all sex. I'm going to avoid the difficulty of the discernment. I am going to practice celibacy. And Ram Dass, who is a teacher I think probably a lot of you are aware of, but he talks about his 12 years as a celibate monk and what he observed when he was practicing celibacy. He said, as a renunciate, you push away sexual stimuli so that you won't lust, but that isn't engaging honestly with the world. That's aversion, it's avoidance. And you often end up a horny celibate. You're just busy not having sex. And he found himself just as consumed with not having sex as he had been with lust before. And that's not freedom. There's a difference between putting all of your energy into not scratching an itch and understanding that the satisfaction of scratching an itch is impermanent. So we're being, again, invited here to do something so much harder than abstain. We're being asked to pay attention. Speaking about the people with leprosy who were burning their sores, the Buddha said, what if a person came with medicine that cured the itching? When the person's friends called him to the fire to burn his sores as he used to, he would have absolutely no desire to do so. It would be abhorrent to him, the idea of putting his arm in the fire. For the Buddha, the medicine was clear seeing of cause and effect, discerning what is onward leading towards freedom and what is harmful. What behavior relieves the itch for a minute and then leaves us burned? That's what he wants us to know. Bhante Gunaratana points out that in the realm of right action, this precept is translated as avoiding sexual misconduct, and most people agree that's what the Buddha meant, but the original language says avoiding abuse of the senses, meaning all of them. And so we're also invited to ask, are there places in your life where you abuse your senses? Sex is not the only place where we get consumed with desire for temporary relief. Where do you go hard to scratch an itch and feel worse for it later? Is it sex, food, drugs, alcohol, exercise, religious practice, self-sacrifice, media, work? Most people have one. And we often make the same mistake that Ram Dass made and say in the aftermath, well, I'm just not going to do this anymore. I'm going to quit. I'm going to abstain. But so often when we try that, we just end up horny celibates. And guilty ones too. Moving between our aversion to desire, which is real, and judgment about our inability to resist it. That's not freedom. Lust can be consuming, crushes can be consuming, and both of them tend to speak in a voice that says, be ruled by me or consumed by me. But Ram Dass offers another option, which is to feel lust, which is to have a crush. What is it like to fully feel all the painful pleasure of lust without doing what it commands? Just get to know, not for you to do it or not do it, but for you to see. What is it like to enjoy a crush without pursuing it? What is it like to let your mouth water for a delicious treat before you eat or don't eat it? Just to know the wanting. To reach for your phone, but not turn it on. Can you be familiar with wanting? Can you tolerate it? The training to avoid abusing senses requires us to be there for the experience, to be there for the aftermath and see clearly. And when we're ready, when we've gained enough information from that practice to move wisely. What is it like to feel an itch without scratching? How can we determine when it's the right time and amount to scratch without putting a firm rule that we won't and then indulging immediately? This is why we sit. Wanting will come up, itching will come up, desire will come up, and yeah, lust will come up when you're sitting. And so we use that chance to sit with it, to practice. So let's do that now for a couple of minutes. Now you're all feeling lusty and itchy. Let's sit for a few minutes.